Hey guys, I want to talk to you about kind of an issue that I was talking about with somebody at the gym. They said that they were having problems with their foot spinning out when they were running. And so we'll kind of talk about maybe some of the culprits when it comes to addressing that. You know, what's causing that foot to spin out. And you'll see that sometimes with running, or you'll see it with squats sometimes. Somebody will start in a nice pretty squat, and as they go down, those toes will start to spin out. And that usually tells me they're lacking mobility somewhere. So the first place I check is usually the ankles, okay? So you've got to have a certain amount of dorsiflexion, this motion where the foot is coming back towards you, in order to get into a nice deep squat. You also need that when you're walking and running. And if you don't have this nice dorsiflexion that you need when you're going through that full gait pattern or that full squat, your body's going to find it somewhere. And typically that means that that foot is either spinning out or that ankle is crashing in. So again, I'm over exaggerating, but if you imagine somebody who's a runner and they're putting tens of thousands of steps in every week, then we are going to start to develop some issues. So if we can do something as simple as fixing some dorsiflexion, where now those toes are forward, it's a nice clean pattern, we will see some improvements in pain and in your overall just ability to complete some of those tasks, okay? So ankle mobility, the first thing I would work on is just real simple dorsiflexion stretch. So there are a few different ways to do this. Get this box over here. You can do a simple stair step stretch. So I'll go left foot up. I can come in, I can just keep that heel down and just shove that knee forward, okay? Now this is another good opportunity on your stair step stretch to get some hip flexor in there too. And we're gonna talk about that more in just a minute. So stretching out here, I'd go about 30 seconds, kind of leaning those hips into it. You can get a hip flexor stretch while you're at it, okay? 30 seconds each side. I can also, kind of like we talk about with our ankle stuff, typically when we're on, we'll say we need to have a certain distance that we can get our knee to the box. So I should go barefoot here. Let's go one hand width. Toes bump right up against that. And if you're barefoot, keep your heel down. You should be able to lean forward and touch your knee on the box. If we're not getting that, we know that we probably have some dorsiflexion stuff. So this is where the test becomes the exercise. So I can just work on driving forward. Or what I really like to do is just grab something. Let's get a plate. Stick that plate down on the ground. And I can prop my foot up there and get another nice dorsiflexion stretch. Again, 30-second hold. You should feel a nice stretch right through your Achilles here. We also have the banded variation. So again, lots and lots of ways to regain dorsiflexion. You can check out some of our other videos. We have the banded variation as well, okay? So that's dorsiflexion. Let's also talk about some hip stuff. If we have some tightness in the hips that are pulling those toes out, we can kind of tease that out. We can kind of address that as well, okay? So a couple things. One would be these hip rotators. They can get tight and they can pull your toes out. So let's go to our 90-90 hip stretch that we like so much. So we're here, we can work external rotation of the hip, stretching here, and then leaning back to the other side to improve our internal rotation. Just hit both while we're at it, okay? So 5, 10, 15-second stretch here, hit each side several times, okay? You really can't get too much of that, okay? Switching sides, make sure we're at 90-90, lean forward, rock to the other side, okay? Another one we can work on that can draw out that toe is the hip flexors, okay? So the psoas muscle comes down, it connects down here on the femur, and if it's tight, it can actually pull that towards the outside. So just a real nice kneeling hip flexor stretch, okay? When you do this, lock in the core. So right here, I can get a little bit of this kind of ribs down, lock that in real tight, and I'm gonna shift forward. If this goes loose, I'm losing all that stretching I could have done on my psoas muscle, okay? So lock it in, rock forward, and I should feel a real good stretch right here on the front of my hip. 30-second hold, hit that on each side, lock in the core, moving forward. Okay, loosen those things up. And the third one I would kind of look at, so if we feel like we're pretty loose in those or we're moving pretty well, we're still having some issues with the toe out, maybe I look at that tibial rotation, okay? So I should be able to sit here, keep my toes forward, and I should be able to have some rotation here. Keep my heel flat, keeping my foot flat, keep my big toe down. I should be able to rotate, okay? I can also sit here with knees forward and kind of see how far I can bring my toes in. If I'm having an issue where my left one is moving in quite a bit and that right one's coming up short, I know that I probably need to work that a little bit, okay? So I can go here, I can plant my foot, rotate out, and work on a few of these things. I can also grab a band, and this also works better without shoes on, but I can pinch this band down with my toe. I can pull out, don't let the band fly. Okay, so that's really working more of that arch, working more of strengthening this whole area. But I can pull out, but I can also create tension, work on tibial rotation as well. Okay, so check out those things for mobility. It should help with some of that stuff if we're dealing with some tightness. Okay, and one more thing we wanted to talk about is some people are going to have a certain amount of retroversion or anteversion in the hips, meaning when we have that femur, okay, and it's coming up and fitting into the socket, some people's femur is just rotated a little bit more, or the head of that femur is facing a little bit more forward, or facing a little bit more backwards. And the question is, okay, we know that information, what do we do with it? Nothing, okay, but it's something to be aware of. But it might mean that we're not always going to have this ideal toes forward squat, okay? In fact, I don't recommend toes forward squat. Some people can do it, most can't. I do a little bit of a wider stance and I toe out a little bit. Squatting is going to be individualized towards every person, so we just have to figure out, what's the path of least resistance? It's not here for me. It's going to be more shoulder width coming up towards outside of my shoulder. So a little bit of toe out, make sure those knees follow the toes, and I can sink down into a really nice squat there. So everybody's hips are built a little bit different. It's something to be aware of, and just play around with it. That's where you need to get in the gym, see if that works, or maybe I go out, toe out a little bit more, or maybe I'm real wide. Maybe I need to come way out here. And just experiment and see what works best for you, okay?
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe, and drop us a line if you have any questions or comments.